Welcome to the Deep Dive. I'm your host, and sitting across from me is our resident market expert.
Happy to be here. We got a lot to cover.
We really do. And the mission today is to arm you, the listener. Whether you are a student walking into a high-stakes investment interview later this week, or just a curious mind trying to make sense of your own portfolio.
Right. We want to give you a complete synthesis of the actual mechanics driving this chaos.
Exactly. We aren't just looking at the scoreboard today. We are breaking down the underlying causes of this week's extreme market whiplash.
Yeah, and to understand these bizarre daily trading anomalies, plus the absolute carnage in the commodities market, we really had to start with the foundational reality.
The macro picture.
Exactly, because everything happening downstream right now is being dictated by one single, very stubborn macroeconomic factor, and that is sticky inflation.
Oh, for sure. So let's pull up that February PPI report, the Producer Price Index that dropped last Wednesday.
Right, that was a wake-up call.
Huge wake-up call. I mean, the headline number came in at positive 0.7%.
Which completely blew past expectations.
Right. The consensus expectation was, what, 0.3%?
Yeah, just 0.3. And it was a steep acceleration from the prior reading, which was 0.5%.
So overall, the year-over-year PPI increase is sitting at 3.4%. But if you look at the source data, the true alarm bell ringing on trading desks right now is the core PPI.
Oh, absolutely.
Because year-over-year, core PPI is sitting at a very concerning 3.9%.
Yeah, and that 3.9% is basically the anchor that's dragging down the entire market narrative.
Can you explain why that core number is so vital?
Sure. So core PPI strips out the historically volatile categories, things like food and energy. So it gives us the underlying persistent trend of wholesale inflation.
So it's the cost of doing business before the goods even reach the consumer.
Exactly. And getting a reading that high is troubling on its face. But the real anxiety, the reason this specific data point is causing so much structural damage to market sentiment is the timing.
Right. The timing is crazy because this February reading happened entirely before the sharp rise in energy prices we just saw throughout March. We are essentially looking at a core inflationary engine that is running entirely too hot before the massive, expensive gasoline spike even hits the data.
It's scary.
Right. Like, if the baseline is 3.9% without the energy shock, aren't we looking at a much scarier picture next month when the March data comes out?
That is exactly the fear keeping the Federal Reserve up at night.
So the Fed looked at this data last Wednesday, and predictably, they kept interest rates unchanged.
Yeah, no surprise there.
But the actual violence wasn't in the rate decision itself. It was in the dot plot.
Oh, the dot plot shift was a massive U-turn.
It's like a group chat of central bankers predicting the future, and suddenly everyone agreed to just slam on the brakes.
That's a perfect way to put it. Because just a few months ago, in December 2025, we had 12 Fed members projecting more than one rate cut for 2026.
So the consensus was that relief was finally coming.
Right. But fast forward to this latest release, and 14 of the 19 Fed members now project 0 to 1 single rate cut for the entirety of 2026.
Wow.
They looked at the same data we just discussed and basically pulled the emergency brake.
And think about the mechanical consequence of that shift for institutional investors. I mean, back in December, a staggering 73.6% of investors expected the Fed to cut rates more than twice this year.
The entire market had priced in this reality of cheaper capital, easier borrowing, expanding multiples.
And today, that number has just collapsed. Only 1.6% of investors believe we are getting more than 2 cuts.
Going from almost 74% down to less than 2%. I mean, that's not just a change in sentiment.
No, it's a liquidation.
Exactly. It is an absolute liquidation of the previous market narrative.
Right.
The market is waking up to a harsh, higher for longer reality.
And this is where the behavioral psychology of Wall Street gets really fascinating because the Fed has essentially flatlined, right? They've taken rate cuts off the table.
Right.
So the market has lost its primary macroeconomic momentum. It's created this massive information vacuum.
And that vacuum is the perfect breeding ground for extreme volatility. When the market lacks broad macroeconomic direction from the central bank, algorithmic trading models, and human traders alike, they become hyper-reactive to secondary stimuli.
They are just starving for any catalyst to price in.
Exactly.
Which brings us to the bizarre statistical anomaly dominating March. This is where it gets really interesting. The source material compares the S&P 500's behavior this month to the 1970s pop tune by the Carpenters, Rainy Days and Mondays.
Right. but inverted.
Yeah, completely inverted, except in this case, Mondays are the only days not getting investors down.
The statistics on this are incredibly stark.
Mm-hmm.
Like throughout March, absolutely every single Monday has delivered positive returns.
Averaging a gain of 0.8%. Right?
Yeah, averaging 0.8%. But the moment Tuesday morning rolls around, the environment just shifts. All but 2 of the 12 Tuesday through Fridays in March were down.
Averaging a loss of 0.6%.
Exactly.
The Outlook actually presented a hypothetical trading strategy based on this that completely blew my mind.
Oh, the Friday to Monday trade.
Yeah. It noted that if you had bought the S&P 500 index at the close on the last Friday of February and then shorted it at Monday's close,
Your portfolio would be up 10.9%.
right, 10.9%. Meanwhile, the actual index itself is down 4.3% over that same period. But wait, is this buy Friday, short Monday thing a viable trading strategy for regular people? Or is this just a perfect example of hindsight bias looking at a statistical glitch?
I mean, I thought the exact same thing when I first modeled the data. It looks like a classic calendar illusion.
Right.
But when you look at the market microstructure driving it, it actually makes perfect mechanical sense.
How so?
Well, this unusual daily pattern is a direct result of the current geopolitical and domestic news cycle interacting with that information vacuum we just talked about.
Huh.
Specifically, President Trump has been utilizing the weekends and early Monday mornings to issue much bolder, market-positive policy statements and geopolitical directives. A statement hits the wire on Sunday night, the algorithms scrape the keywords, and the market immediately prices it in.
And because liquidity is generally lower over the weekend and in the pre-market, those Monday morning moves become highly exaggerated.
You nailed it. Traders are starved for positive news because the high core PPI and the lack of said rate cuts are acting as this persistent weight on valuations.
So a market positive statement is made over the weekend. The market opens on Monday, and we see a massive surge as traders rush to position themselves.
Yeah, it's a localized Monday sugar rush. But as the week drags on, from Tuesday to Friday, the underlying reality sets back in. The adrenaline fades, the fundamental gravity of high interest rates takes over, and the indices grind lower.
Wow. And we don't even have to look back at historical data to prove this out because we have a real-time, massive example of this exact Monday phenomenon playing out today, March 23, 2026.
Oh, the Iran news, yes.
Yeah, the weekend news cycle just delivered absolute whiplash to the global markets regarding Iran.
The timeline of this specific event perfectly illustrates the broader market mechanics.
Yeah.
Over the weekend, President Trump announced he was backing down on his previous threat to destroy Iran's power infrastructure.
Right.
And not only was the military threat removed, but he announced new diplomatic talks with Tehran to broker a deal.
And the equity market reaction was, what, instantaneous? The S&P 500 jumped 1.15% today alone.
It did. But if you want to see pure, unfiltered market mechanics at work, look at the absolute chaos in the crude oil markets.
Oh, man. The whiplash in oil was insane. Last week, oil was up 5.2% through Friday afternoon. The market was aggressively pricing in the destruction of Iranian infrastructure and a massive supply shock.
Right. Everyone thought supply was going to get hit.
But then the Monday morning announcement hits. The threat evaporates. And oil plummets 9.5% today.
It's a textbook evaporation of a geopolitical risk premium.
Right, a risk premium.
Yeah, which is simply the extra price traders demand to hold an asset when there is extreme uncertainty. When traders believed a major global energy producer was about to have its infrastructure targeted, they bid the price of crude up aggressively to insure against that risk.
Makes sense.
But the moment the weekend news removed the threat, the rationale for that premium vanished, and the price collapsed, leaving oil down 4.8% for the entire week.
It is crazy how fast sentiment shifts. I mean, a single weekend headline completely wiped out an entire week of oil price gains in a matter of hours.
It really is incredible.
But here is the critical takeaway for you listening. While a 1.15% jump in the S&P 500 on a Monday morning feels fantastic if you are checking your brokerage app, it is entirely masking the underlying weakness of the broader market.
Yeah, the weekly scoreboard paints a very different, much darker picture than today's headline.
Let's run through those numbers.
Sure. So even factoring in today's Monday pump, the weekly performance across U.S. equities was decisively negative. Large cap stocks were down 1.8%. Small caps were down 0.4%.
And the Nasdaq fell 1.9%.
Right. But the most revealing spread is between growth and value stocks. Value was down 1.2%, but growth stocks took a much harder hit, dropping a full 2.0%.
And that spread isn't random, right? Growth stocks drop significantly more than value stocks because of the mechanics of how they are valued.
Exactly.
Growth companies are valued based on cash flows and profits they expect to generate far out in the future. So when you plug a higher for longer interest rate into those discount models, the present value of those future dollars just shrinks violently.
While value companies, which generate cash today, are slightly more insulated.
Right.
It's pure financial gravity. And this wasn't just an isolated domestic phenomenon either. World stock markets followed the exact same downward trajectory, driven by the same global repricing of capital.
Yeah, developed market stocks fell 2.3%, and emerging market stocks fell 1.8%.
Stocks are experiencing this localized Monday whiplash, but equities are at least putting up a fight.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to see the pure, unfiltered destruction of these higher for longer rates, you have to look at non-yielding assets.
Oh, the casualties. Let's talk about the absolute carnage in gold.
It's historically bad.
Last week, gold experienced a really sharp sell-off, dropping a staggering 10.5%. That is its sharpest weekly decline in 43 years.
Think about that. A drop of that magnitude in a single week for a major commodity is incredibly rare. And it speaks to a massive structural shift in how institutional investors are allocating capital.
So what's fascinating here is, why is gold falling off a cliff?
To understand that, you have to understand its sensitivity to real interest rates.
All right, let's break that down. I like to think of gold and real interest rates kind of like a strict playground seesaw. Gold is this jealous asset. It demands your capital, but it pays no rent.
Exactly. It yields no dividend. It offers no interest payments.
Right. Your only hope is that someone else will pay more for it tomorrow than you paid today. So when the bond market suddenly starts offering you a massive guaranteed rent on your capital, gold basically gets evicted from portfolios.
That is the exact mechanism. Institutional money will always flow toward the highest risk-adjusted yield.
Always.
The sources point specifically to the movement in 10-year inflation-linked treasuries, commonly known as TIPS.
Right, TIPS.
These bonds offer a yield that is explicitly protected from inflation, which is what we call the real rate. This past week, the yield on TIPS rose 15.7 basis points.
Wow.
And in the fixed income world, where movements are typically measured in tiny fractions of a percent, a 15.7 basis point move upward in real rates is a massive gravitational pull away from non-yielding assets like gold.
So if an investor can lock in a guaranteed inflation-protected return in the treasury market, the appeal of holding a shiny rock that pays 0% just vanishes.
Completely. And the speed of this bond market repricing is just staggering. Traditional bonds sold off for the fourth week in a row.
Meaning their prices dropped and their yields surged.
Exactly. The yield on the standard 10-year treasury rose 13.2 basis points to close at 4.35% today.
4.35%. And the trajectory is what matters most there, right? That close today is up a remarkable 41 basis points since it fell below 4% just at the end of February.
Yeah, in less than a month, the foundational cost of borrowing in the global economy has surged. This reprices mortgages, auto loans, corporate debt, and equity valuations across the board.
So what does this all mean for the listener who thought bonds and gold were the quote-unquote safe part of their portfolio?
Well, if you're synthesizing this to present in a meeting or just to understand your own exposure, here is the clear through line.
Okay.
It all starts with that stubborn 3.9% core PPI. That persistent wholesale inflation forced the Fed to abandon their rate cut projections.
Right, slamming on the brakes.
Which instantly transformed the market landscape from a narrative of easy money to a reality of higher for longer capital costs.
Which mechanically crushes the appeal of non-yielding safe havens, leading to 43-year historic drops in gold, and puts immense pressure on long-duration growth stocks.
Right. And simultaneously, because the Fed's inaction has created an information vacuum, algorithmic traders are latching on to weekend geopolitical announcements.
Like the Iran de-escalation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which creates massive Monday relief rallies that ultimately fail to reverse the broader rate-driven weekly downtrends.
Well, there you have it. You are now completely caught up on the mechanics of this market. But as we look ahead to the rest of the week, while the economic calendar is relatively light, there is one major data release that could completely disrupt this delicate balance.
Yes, all eyes are going to be on Friday's release of the University of Michigan's Consumer Sentiment Index.
Right. Because we know wholesale inflation is sticky. We know energy prices spiked sharply in March.
But what we don't know yet is how the everyday consumer is internalizing those dual pressures.
Exactly.
If Friday's data shows that the consumer is finally breaking under the weight of higher gasoline prices and elevated borrowing costs, it fundamentally alters the earnings projections for the back half of the year.
So the check engine light is blinking, and Friday we get to see if the driver is finally starting to panic. Keep it in mind as you watch the tape open next Monday. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive.